How is the performance management process in your school? Is it one that has a dynamic impact, that it really makes a huge difference to the quality of the teaching, the quality of the student outcomes, and the quality of the culture in your school? Or is it something that has less impact, that is done as a procedural thing, as a necessary task that doesn't necessarily have enough impact? Whichever the case, whichever end of the scale you're at, these next 30 minutes are designed for you. My name's Charlie Warshawski. My day job is a leadership coach. I coach school leaders, and for the last decade I've been working with schools to help them with their performance management. I've been helping them develop a coaching-based approach so that they can make this performance management process really meaningful and really impactful. So in this next half hour, we're going to look at 5 or 6 different areas. We're going to look at why, really the benefit and the case for performance management. We're going to review a good process, and we're also going to consider targets, how to make them effective and meaningful. A couple of case studies to share with you and some next steps. So let's start. Let's think about the big picture, the purpose. What are we looking to achieve with performance management? I'm sure there are a number of reasons we can think of. These for me are the main 3. That we want there to be a cycle of development, of continual improvement for teachers and leaders. Teaching does not stand still. There are always new initiatives, always new ways of working, and we want to consolidate great practice, but also encourage colleagues to grow and develop new practice. From a whole school perspective, we want to see some consistency. We don't necessarily want people teaching in the same way, but we do want a consistent level of professionalism and of high quality teaching. And performance management can help deliver that. And from the personal perspective, we really want to use performance management as an opportunity to acknowledge teachers who are working really hard and delivering great outcomes, to acknowledge TAs who are doing something very similar, to acknowledge middle and senior leaders who are bringing it all together and helping to improve the standards throughout the school. If these 3 areas are achieved, then we can see some real huge benefits for the schools, but also for the individuals, teachers and students alike. The challenge we have with performance management, I think, particularly in UK schools, is that often it hasn't been done very well. Often it's been a last minute thing. Often it's been driven by new changes in policy and government initiatives rather than necessarily for what the school would like to do if it had free rein to do whatever it likes. And these are some of the impacts, I think, of seeing this type of approach. Firstly, a system-led approach means that schools often invest either in internal systems with technology, with organising meetings, with filling in schedules and worksheets and so on, or they buy in an external provider such as Blue Sky or Appraised. And needs to be such a heavy investment in the system that's what everyone focuses on, rather than necessarily the core of the matter, which is investing in the teacher, investing in the leader, and investing in the relationship that goes within performance management. Secondly, there's been an underinvestment. Often we see that performance management is a task allocated to someone who's a bit too busy, that those reviewers, the appraisers who do the performance management, often don't have the ring-fenced time to be able to do their performance management conversations. Quite often, middle and senior leaders say to me things like, I have to ram all of my appraisal conversations into one day or a couple of days, seeing people back to back just to get through them. So that leads to the third one, which is that then there can be limited impact. Very few teachers and leaders are walking around saying that they have improved or developed or grown their practice significantly on the basis of having their performance management conversations. Perhaps in your school it's the exception. Perhaps you've managed to overcome this obstacle and help your colleagues really see this as valuable. If so, congratulations. It is a rare moment when that does happen. And then finally, this bottom one applies particularly to UK state sector schools. Performance related pay. It was introduced just under a decade ago by the government. It's mandatory. And the challenge we have here is that there is very, very limited evidence to show that performance-related pay works for complex tasks. Teaching is a complex task. Leading school departments or leading schools are complex tasks. And once basic pay and conditions have been satisfied, then extra pay is not a motivator. In fact, it's probably the opposite. It's probably more a demotivator. Inside this carrot of increased pay for good performance is the stick of taking it away if performance doesn't hit whatever arbitrary standard has been set. So these things are definitely obstacles, but they're not insurmountable. They're reasons why you may find that some colleagues within school are a bit resistant and a bit reluctant to engage fully in performance management. When we run training in schools, one of the first things we ask is, how effective do you think performance management is in your school? And the numbers are always pretty low, even including amongst the leadership team. So we know we're on relatively safe ground that there is work to be done here. So let's step back from the negative and let's look at the possibilities here. Before we do that, I wanted to share the tension that I see that's at the heart of performance management. It's this: autonomy versus compliance. Many people go into teaching because they really value their autonomy. From a professional practice perspective, teaching is probably one of the most autonomous professions. Although, of course, there is observation and supervision, most of a teacher's week is unobserved. Most of a teacher's week, they can choose how to work, obviously within parameters. And most of the time that's fine, and most of the time that leads to fantastic outcomes. Schools want to encourage teachers to be autonomous and take ownership of their own professionalism. But also over here, there's this element of compliance. Compliance says it's really important that everyone works at the same standard, that everyone delivers teaching that is worked on an evidence-based, that's current and up to date. So this tension of giving teachers their head, letting teachers follow their own pathway, but making sure that they're compliant within the big picture, I think it's at the heart of performance management. And it's why we take a coaching approach, because we want to give teachers the space to explore themselves and their identity as teachers, as well as complying with what the school needs. So let's take that, put that to one side, and let's consider what a good system is like. So in your school, perhaps you've got a system that needs changing. Perhaps you've got a system that needs fine-tuning, or perhaps you're ready to start again. Whichever the case, have a look at this. This is an overview mapping of what a good system can look like. Firstly, we need someone in charge. We need someone who owns a process. Often it's an assistant head teacher, sometimes it's a head. What's really important here is that they own the process, not just for a term, not just to get it set up, but on an ongoing basis. The schools that we work with that do this well have the same person responsible and still working on it for year upon year upon year. And that makes a really big difference. The system needs to be clear. It needs to be simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated with either the technology or the internal mechanisms. Both appraisers and appraisees need to absolutely understand what their role is and what they need to do. And they don't need to do anything unnecessary. They need to just focus on the core of the appraisal process. Appraisers, we believe, work best if they adopt a coaching style. So training appraisers to use a coaching approach within the performance management conversations is vital. The idea that an appraiser will understand when to coach, but perhaps when to do other things as well. Coaching is at the heart of a good performance management dialogue. The appraisees, the people being appraised, need a bit of support to be able to develop their own professional development plans. Research shows that fewer than 1% of professionals have their own self-generated PDPs. Some have them on the basis of what the school asks you to do, but people to have planning out their own short and medium and long-term professional goals, that's quite rare for people to do that. If appraisees are taught how to do that well, they're likely to take more ownership of the smaller goals, the smaller increments of improvement of their practice. The fifth one is a really big one, and it's a headache often for school leaders: target setting. Targets can be great, but also targets can be really difficult and really fiddly. And towards the end of this talk, I'm going to share some ideas about how to get our target setting really consistent. And then finally, the annual cycle isn't just about the beginning of the year and the end of the year. We want lots of informal reviews. Informal reviews, so appraiser and appraisee meet, they talk, and the appraisee absolutely knows where they stand and they know how well they're doing at any point. They don't have to wait for the end of the year to get feedback. So these 6 steps, I think, if we focus on them and we build up in each of these 6 areas, it gives us a great chance of being able to have a really good performance management system. And that's what we've seen in the many schools that we have observed take this really seriously. Let's put it more under the spotlight. Let's look at the annual cycle now. So it's bookended with a beginning of the year conversation and an end of the year conversation. At the beginning of the year, some reflective dialogue for the teacher, if we're talking about teachers now, for the teacher to really reflect on how well they're doing, their strengths, the areas that they want to improve, and to set their targets. Throughout the year, the informal check-in wants to be on both performance and targets. Many leaders will check in on their colleagues about their performance, how it's going, what's working well, but fewer tend to check in on targets. We want the targets to stay alive throughout the year, to explore obstacles, to explore progress, to help them keep focusing on the targets. In the middle of the year, a more formal review, an opportunity to sit down to see where we're at, that hinge point. Are we going to hit these targets? Do we need to change the targets? Do we need to improve them? And then following through, more informal check-ins at the end of the year. There needs to be a review of both the targets and the performance. It's very possible that colleagues have performed at a great level, a really high level, but they haven't quite hit their targets. We need to acknowledge that. There should be a mantra of no surprises here. Our colleagues shouldn't have to wait until the end of the year to find out whether, according to senior management, they're doing well. So the mantra of no surprises. This to me is an ideal annual cycle. It doesn't matter when it starts or finishes. Obviously the school calendar makes it work well, but some do from June to May as a cycle, end of year to near the end of the next year. You can tailor that to the needs of your school. So at the heart of this annual cycle, I think, as well as the process, are the skills of the appraiser. And we like to see that the appraiser has coaching skills at the heart, of course. And when I'm talking about coaching skills, I mean non-directive. I mean questions, listening, pausing, holding the space, letting the appraisee talk, letting them bring all of their ideas out and put them on the table. That's what I see at the heart of the coaching skills. Part of coaching is also respectful challenge. There may be moments where the appraiser feels it's relevant to challenge. Perhaps they might be exploring to find a bit more evidence, or exploring whether what the appraisee is demonstrating as their best practice is whether to see if it is a consistent practice. So challenge is really important. The acknowledgement of the coachee, this is important because this is an official part of the process. So although we want to informally be letting our colleagues know what we think of their performance, a formal acknowledgement does put a marker, and it does say, we formally recognise on behalf of the school that you are doing a fine job. And they are doing a fine job because they are going through the appraisal process. If they weren't doing a fine job, the school will be dealing with them in a different way. So the acknowledgement is really important. And then finally, the skilled appraiser wants to make sure that the appraisee is getting lots out of it, that they're enjoying the conversation, that they're having some deep thinking, some reflective dialogue, in order to be able to then learn, develop, grow, and set their own rich and meaningful targets. So the skilled coaching appraiser is really important. Now, I've got a small case study that I wanted to share with you here of a school where appraisal started with this coaching approach. It's Woodford Green School in London. The head, Jonathan Wadge, invested in this coaching style of appraisal for the whole school in 2015. It's still in place now in 2022 and going very well. And because Jonathan really liked and appreciated this coaching style, he then chose to come and train to be an executive coach. He's still a serving head, but he earned a master's level qualification in coaching in 2009. And he can now use coaching approaches all day long, all week long, not just in the appraisal process. So his celebration and his acknowledgement of the importance of coaching and appraisal has led him to want to adopt a coaching approach as part of all of his professional practice. It's an inspiration and it's a great model to emulate. We've also got a second case study to share with you. YK Power is a school in Shanghai, and it's a school that has worked really, really hard on this appraisal process, and it's been working hard on this since about 2018. The principal, Siobhan Allam, is going to share some ideas about what she's done, how she's made this work. So I hope you found that an interesting and impactful presentation and case study. I'm sure that what you can hear from behind Siobhan's words is her enthusiasm, her passion, her commitment. It's challenging to do this in any school, but it's particularly challenging, I think, to do this in bilingual schools with two different sets of cultures, with two different sets of really teacher identity. And I think she's done some incredible work to be able to make this happen. So the final piece of this appraisal jigsaw puzzle is targets. And the challenge with targets is often the idea of schools having a whole school approach. Everyone gets 3 targets, everyone gets similar targets. Or having no approach, so everyone decides their own targets. And what we found is that giving appraisers some really clear guidelines and a really clear brief on what good targets are is really important. So a school can agree a system that says something like 1 target relating to teaching, 1 target relating to outcomes, 1 target relating to professional development. Those things are fine. But within that, we need to explore whether the actual targets written are useful. So I use this 7-point checklist that you'll see. The idea that there's consensus is really important. That it's meaningful, there's going to be some impact. That it's going to make a difference either to student outcomes or teacher knowledge. That it is clear, there's no vagueness about it. It's not just I will go and do X, it's I will achieve X. So it's not just attend the course, but it's learn X thing and implement Y thing. That the target does focus on their current skill level. So the idea of everyone in a school getting a target of make sure that their students in their class achieve X level, that isn't relevant, that's not tailored. For some teachers, that might be a really easy target. For other teachers, it might be a really challenging target. So the incentive isn't there fully. That we need to make sure that the target doesn't rely on lots of free time, a specific course being available. They need to be targets that the learning can still be done without the external support, whether it is by self-study or reading or observation or self-reflection. Being able to really take ownership of it is really important. We say not just a task because we can easily put a target down there that is something that I need to do anyway. It needs to feel like something that's new and a growth and a change. And that's why we talk about a comfortable stretch. We train school leaders to be executive coaches, and often that's on their performance management. And often what we see is it is a stretch because a commitment to taking a coaching approach to leadership, for many it's different, for many it's a change. So that's some guidance, and we give you a checklist that you can use to see what a good target is going to be like. We need to moderate these targets, and that's really important so that it seems fair. So the one person takes all the targets, lays them all out, metaphorically speaking, and decides, are these targets correct? Are they right for that person, for the level, the stage of interest? That the appraisers are ready and able to support their colleague with their targets. But also this real clarity on what happens if this target isn't achieved. Is there a bit of wiggle room? Is there the stick of losing your performance management increment? Or is there something slightly more tailored, more nuanced? That needs to be agreed and publicised. So with these guidance on these last 2 slides, I think this gives you enough information to be able to make your targets rich, meaningful and beneficial for the school students and for the teacher themselves. So let's bring this all together. We've looked at a system. We've looked at an end-to-end cycle. We've looked at the constituent elements of what needs to be in place to make performance management work. We've looked at some case studies and some targets. So how do we implement this? This would be my suggestion, and this is what we do when we work in depth with schools. The audit will let you see what's good, what's working well, what needs to be kept, what's really useful, and then start to consider what needs to change. The champion or champions can take a lead on this, can own the whole process. The process and policy wants agreement across the board, amongst the leadership, amongst key stakeholders. If you're within a union school, definitely with union colleagues. Then the investment in training, both the appraisers who are going to hold the performance management conversations and the appraisees, whether that is teachers, TAs, non-teaching staff or leaders. The training needs to happen for all. That the conversations, beginning, middle and end of the year, time needs to be ring-fenced. It's really very important. If we ring-fence and protect the time, it's more likely to happen and it shows the school's commitment to the whole process. And then, of course, the implementation. And what we've seen in cases like YK Power and Siobhan School is that we implement it bit by bit. Maybe one target the first year, maybe just the teachers the second year, maybe then incorporate it with the TAs the third and fourth year. You don't have to do it all in one go, but the monitoring, the review, the evaluation and the tweaking is really essential. So as we come towards the end, my encouragement is to really think about what's working well, to think about the amount of hours you are already investing in performance management in your school to see whether it's having enough impact. I've presented today what is an ideal model with time, investment and energy and focus. You may find that you can do parts of this. You may find you want to do, as I've just said, in piecemeal stages. If you do something, it's going to help. It's going to make some progress. We're very happy to work with you. We're very happy to take calls, to be consulted, to share our audit checklists, and to start having some conversations to see if there's things that we can do to be able to help you move forward. The details are on this slide and I'm very, very happy to share. So as we come towards this end, think about the impact. Take yourself forward 5 years. Perhaps think about your own professional practice or the professional practice of colleagues within your school, within your environment. And imagine everyone having had several performance management reviews that work really well. Imagine all the appraisers being really skilled in both coaching and also challenging respectfully. Imagine the consistency in the targets being there in place. And imagine if performance management were made at the heart of development of colleagues, development of teaching practice, and ultimately attainment for our students. Imagine what that could be like. I look forward to talking to you and I look forward to hearing what your plans are for performance management in your schools.